In New Zealand, Auckland officials declare a state of emergency over extreme flooding. Authorities suspend school and train service due to the torrential rain. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to amend Code of Conduct in the West Philippine Sea. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. hopes to discuss the economic recovery of ASEAN nations. ASEAN leaders slam military attacks on Myanmar aid convoy in a joint statement. The European Union condemns China's change in cybersecurity laws. And 2 BTS documentaries to hit the screens this June. The Marcos administration is pushing to renew negotiations for the issuance of a code of conduct in the South China Sea. Mian Corvera reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. asserts he will urge his fellow Southeast Asian nation leaders to finalize the code of conduct in South China Sea. Marcos insists a new code is needed to resolve territorial dispute and tensions in the region. The president is currently in Indonesia for the 42nd Asian Summit. He believes this is the time to agree on the immediate issuance of COC.
So yes, I'll bring it up again because when we talk about the issues in the West Philippine Sea, South China Sea, hindi magkakalma yan hanggang meron na tayong code of conduct.
Marcos says disputes in the South China Sea will not be resolved unless there is a new code that will make things clearer between ASEAN and China.
Solution of all of these problems is really the new code of conduct. Paulit-ulit ko lagi sinasabi and every forum I can find, sinasabi ko, code of conduct, kailangan natin tapusin.
The president admits creating a binding COC is a challenge as China has separate bilateral agreements with ASEAN member states. He says negotiations for the COC should be a separate forum from the ASEAN summit.
No, the code of conduct, the negotiations of code of conduct are separate from the ASEAN summits. They negotiate in another way. So that's not something that will be done here at this time. What we need to do is, look, kung wala pa, ano pa talagang naging problema? This is what we have to discuss amongst ourselves. What is the problem? What is the bottleneck? Where are we having a hard time? How can we fix that problem? And everyone has a different agenda. But if we talk about it and with a common thought in mind, I think we'll get there. But I hope sooner rather than later because the tensions are increasing.
During the ASEAN summit last year, Marcos also pushed for the immediate issuance of Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. He added the COC should be based on international law, which he said should be an example of how states manage their conflicts. Mian Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. is hopeful that leaders of ASEAN member states will actively push for the recovery of the region's economy. Vin Pascua for the story.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. expects leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, will aggressively push for the revitalization of the region's economy after facing various challenges in recent years. In a media interview upon his arrival at the Marura Convention Center in Indonesia for the 42nd ASEAN Summit and related summit, President Marcos stated that the agenda of the regional meet is to make ASEAN the locomotive of the global economy and reinvigorate the economy.
We've seen sa EU, we've seen sa ibang lugar that the global economies are also turning towards Asia. And the reason is that perhaps we are adjusting better than the Western countries, the African countries, the Middle Eastern countries are also doing well. But tinitignan din ang Southeast Asia and ASEAN. And that's what the subject matter will be, is that how do we play the part that we want to play, which is going to be the global locomotive of the global economy. So I think all of those aspects of that, yun ang pag-uusapan. Or at least in the Philippines case, yun talagang pag-uusapan natin. But I predict that we will have the same idea in mind.
The chief executive emphasized that almost all countries and economies around the world are looking towards Asia because of the region's growth. During the sidelines of the ASEAN summit, President Marcos will have bilateral meetings with the leaders of Vietnam, Laos, and Timor-Leste. President Marcos noted that it is the first time that Timor-Leste will attend the summit as an observer, a step towards becoming a member of the regional organization. Meanwhile, the presidents will also meet with the leaders of Vietnam and Laos who have recently assumed office. In his departure speech, the president assured that he will ensure to promote the protection and interest of the Philippines in the summit. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippine government continues to appeal the case of Filipino drug convict Mary Jane Veloso in Indonesia. In an ambush interview with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. in Indonesia, the president says the government did not stop appealing for her clemency or pardon and even extradition. The Department of Foreign Affairs in September 2022 asked the Indonesian government for Veloso's clemency, but it was rejected. President Marcos vowed that the government will not give up on Veloso and will try to convince Indonesia to change her fate. Veloso was sentenced to death in 2010 following her arrest in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, where she was caught with 2.6 kilos of heroin.
We haven't really stopped. This is the impasse, okay? The impasse is that we continue to ask for a commutation or even a pardon or just an extradition back to the Philippines. And that is constantly there. But the Indonesians answer us and it's that this is the law. Ito yung batas dito sa Indonesia. Kaya kailangan natin ipagpatupad yan. And they have already given us postponement of the so, but that doesn't mean it's done. Well, I always at least bring it up na baka sakali magbago.
Who will be the next members of President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s cabinet? These questions follow after President Marcos himself hinted reorganization in key positions of his administration. Eren Santos for the details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. hinted at a possible reorganization in his cabinet. During an ambush interview in Indonesia, the chief executive was asked about his plans as the one-year ban on appointing candidates who lost on May 9, 2022 elections expires today. The president says there will be changes.
Yes, there's really going to be, I don't know about reshuffle, but reorganization sa kabinete.
The president noted that 1 year is enough to see how the appointed officials are performing.
Tapos na yung OJT ng lahat ng tao. And we've seen who performs well and who is will be important to what we are doing. So
over the past weeks, there are reports of names that will be possibly appointed by President Marcos in key positions in his administration. These include losing candidates in the last elections, namely former Manila Mayor Isko Moreno, former Senator Gringo Honasan, and former Defense Secretary Gilbert Chodoro. There are also key positions in the cabinet that are not filled with permanent secretaries, which include the Department of Health and the Department of National Defense. Eden Santos reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Agriculture Undersecretary Leocadio Sebastian clarified the fears in the Memorandum Order Number 2 that sets guidelines for the use of biofertilizers. In an interview on the program Ano sa Palagay Nyo or ASPN, Sebastian said that there is nothing to be afraid of in the said order because it only wants to restore the health of the cultivated land. Sebastian clarified that the order has no intention of mimicking the fertilizer scam of former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. The bidding process will also be subject to the provisions of Republic Act 9184 or the Procurement Act. This is the first time that Sebastian spoke on the issue. Sinag Chairperson Rosendo So was throwing at him. So is revoking the said memorandum because the specified biofertilizer is said to be overpriced. Sebastian explained that DA is promoting the use of biofertilizer to restore the health of the soil that has been destroyed by synthetic fertilizers.
Actually, maganda yung biofertilizer kasi hindi na tayo aasa ng pag mabawasan natin yung demand natin sa synthetic, mas mababawasan yung importation natin ng mga synthetic fertilizer, yung inorganic fertilizer. Na nung nakaraang taon, bumagsak yung ating production dahil napakamahal ang urea, ang inorganic fertilizer. Kaya naman pati si President Marcos, in-encourage niya rin ang Department of Agriculture na tignan yung paggamit at pag-promote ng biofertilizer. Kasi yan naman nangyayari na sa buong mundo eh. Kaya sabi ko nga ang hirap naman pala dito sa atin sa Pilipinas. Tinuturuan natin yung mga kapitbahay natin, mga Vietnam, mga ganyan. Ano yung sinasabi natin sustainable rice production, yung mga ecologically friendly rice production, etc. Pagdating dito sa atin, ayaw na pala natin magbago para.
Digital Pinoy Advocate Group says GCash must be held liable over complaints and glitches experienced by its users. JD Mahinay has the details.
In an interview on Net25 program, Ano sa Palagay Nyo or ASPN, National Campaigner of Digital Pinoy Ronald Gustilo asserts that the government should hold GCash accountable and investigate unauthorized transactions among its subscribers. Gustilo claims that the incident was not just a glitch.
Well, yung glitch, sigurado po ako hindi po ito glitch, no? Kasi kung glitch po yan, kumbaga parang nawala lang po yung pera, tapos maibabalik din agad. Pero sa nangyari pong ito, meron pong actual na fund transfer from GCash account papunta ho sa isang specific na bank account.
Gustilo notes that GCash did not admit what occurred to the system and explain why the missing money was transferred to the accounts into banks.
Imbestigahan na ito ng gobyerno. Nang sa ganun, mapunto natin ano ang punot dulo, bakit umantong sa ganitong insidente, ganito kalaking halaga ng pera ang nawala sa libo-libong GCash users. Well, definitely hindi sila dapat hindi lang dapat palampasin itong nangyaring ito, no? Hindi pwedeng porke sinoli na yung pera, ayos na tayong lahat. Dapat ho, dahil ho sa kapabayaan nila, nagkaroon ho ng ganitong problema, dapat panagutan ho nila yan at dapat ho meron talagang mga penalties na i-impose ang gobyerno laban sa GCash.
Gustilo also encourages the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP to take action over the issues faced by fintech companies like GCash. He suggests that GCash should spend money on regular updates to their interface and fund their cybersecurity to prevent others from hacking or entering the system.
Ultimately ho, yung responsibilidad ho talaga para maprotektahan yung account, talagang nandun ho sa platform yan nasa GCash ho yan, nasa Maya ho yan. Ngayon ho, ang isa hong kailangan nilang gawin, kailangan ho nilang mag-hire ng isang third-party auditor na mag-audit ho doon sa strength ng kanilang digital infrastructure. Kasi ho, kung sila lang din yan, kung in-house auditor yan, ako ho sa tingin ko ho, ibang bagay pa rin ho kung meron kang third-party auditor na hindi ho bias, na wala ho siyang utang na loob na hiner ako kaya kailangan maging maayos tong maganda yung output ng audit. Hindi kailangan ho may tapat ho talagang magsasabi na hindi, pangit ng niya, security niyo eh.
JD Mahinay reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas or BSP is investigating the unauthorized transactions in the mobile wallet application GCash. This after incidents such as fund reductions and fund transfers in Asia United Banks and East West Banking Corporations occurred. BSP Deputy Governor for the Payments and Currency Management Sector, Mamerto Tangonan, says that the incident was reported to them by G Exchange Incorporated, which operates GCash. This Tuesday, the GCash system experienced a failure that affected its 79 million users. GCash clarified that no hacking has occurred and they have only extended their scheduled maintenance to investigate reported unauthorized fund transfers. The company also clarified that the fund is safe and if there are any losses, it will be returned to their users. The National Privacy Commissioner, NPC, has sent a notice to explain to GCash following the reports of unauthorized transactions from its subscribers' accounts. NPC orders a clarificatory meeting with GCash on May 12. Coming up, Kyiv Foreign Ministry accuses Russia of war crimes. The White House pays tribute to late war journalist. And former British Prime Minister Liz Truss to visit Taiwan. Stay tuned for more stories around the globe when Mata ng Agila International returns. Watching Mata ng Agila International. To receive more trusted, connected, and on-point news, follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.
Susunod sa Counterpoint, nakilala siya bilang si Joey sa isang sikat na soft drink commercial na lumabas noong late 80s. Ngayon, isa na siyang writer, host, at entrepreneur. Mr. RJ Ledesma.
Kumusta, Attorney Sally? Ito lang idol ko. Hindi lang sa brilliant legal mind, kundi sa fashion icon ka rin para sa akin po.
Nakita niyo ang galing mong bola. Ngayong Miyerkules, alas 10:30 ng gabi, dito sa Net 25.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. President Vladimir Putin says the West has unleashed a real war against Russia. Putin also reframes the battle in Ukraine as a proxy conflict with the West. He says the West is merely using Ukraine as a tool to destroy Russia and its traditional values. He believes the West and its allies are also attempting to rewrite Russia's history. The Russian leader also blames the West for its conflict with Ukraine.
This is the result of the catastrophe that the Ukrainian nation is going through now. They've become hostages to a state coup and the criminal regime and their Western supervisors. They became pawns in their cruel plans. To us in Russia, the memory of those who defended our motherland is sacred.
Putin attended this year's Victory Day parade at Moscow's Red Square. The event marked 78 years since Germany surrendered in World War II. Leaders of several former Soviet republics were also present. 8,000 soldiers marched through the Red Square. The parade also featured Russia's special military operations, armored vehicles, and air defense system. The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry accused Russia of war crimes. Kyiv claimed the Russian President Vladimir Putin justified the killing of Ukrainians, destruction of cities, and repressions. They also alleged that leaders of 7 former Soviet republics who visited Russia's victory parade were unfriendly. Kyiv said these leaders demonstrated contempt for the Ukrainian people. Putin has repeatedly criticized the Ukraine's accusations. He described Kyiv as the hostage of the United States' selfish plans. The White House pays tribute to AFP reporter Arman Soldin, who was killed in eastern Ukraine. The White House says the world is indebted to the journalists who lost their lives covering for the conflict. Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says journalism is fundamental to a free society. In a tweet, she says the world is indebted to Arman and to 10 other reporters and media practitioners who have lost their lives while reporting on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Pakistan's former Prime Minister Imran Khan has appeared before a judge. His arrest ignited nationwide protests. Authorities say nearly 1,000 people have been arrested. At least 2 people died in violent protests. Initial reports say Khan supporters burned government buildings. Army personnel claim Khan's group vandalized their homes. Authorities say the hearing will take place at the police headquarters. A conviction would disqualify Khan from the election. A U.S. jury finds Donald Trump liable for sexual abuse and defamation of a former magazine columnist. The jury orders the ex-president to pay the writer $5 million in damages. The 9 jurors rejected E. Jean Carroll's accusation of rape. They, however, upheld her other complaints in the closely watched civil trial following less than 3 hours of deliberations. The verdict in the lawsuit is the first time Trump has faced legal consequences over sexual misconduct allegations. These claims date back decades and involve a dozen women. 79-year-old Carroll sued Trump last year. She alleged that he raped her in the changing room of the luxury Bergdorf Goodman store on Manhattan's Fifth Avenue in 1996. The former columnist for Elle magazine also claimed that Trump defamed her when he called her a complete con job. This comes after she went public with the allegation in 2019. Trump writes in a message on his Truth Social app, and these are his words: "This verdict is a disgrace." 76-year-old Trump has called her case a hoax and a lie. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has released a video criticizing the verdict of a New York jury. Trump asserts his innocence in the sexual abuse case, saying he does not know who E. Jean Carroll is. He claims the verdict is a scam and politically motivated. He also promised to appeal his case to the court.
This was a very unfair trial. That's all you have to say. This was a very unfair trial. What else can you expect from a Trump-hating, Clinton-appointed judge who went out of his way to make sure that the result of this trial was as negative as it could possibly be, speaking to and in control of a jury from an anti-Trump area, which is probably the worst place in the United States for me to get a fair trial. We'll be appealing this decision. It's a disgrace. I don't even know who this woman is. I have no idea who she is, where she came from. This is another scam. It's a political witch hunt. And somehow we're going to have to fight this stuff. We cannot let our country go into this abyss. This is disgraceful. You have somebody running for office. You have a woman that's financed and lied about it. She totally lied about it by Democrat operatives, like just about the biggest one there is. And she said that wasn't true. They found that she lied about it, and the judge wasn't even, I guess, letting it be put in as evidence. The whole thing is a scam, and it's a shame, and it's a disgrace to our country.
Representative James Comer says U.S. President Joe Biden and his family received more than $10 million from foreign nationals. Comer says the House Oversight Committee uncovered evidence indicative of Biden's family's peddling influence. He also alleged Biden also tried to conceal the source of funds.
The bank records show the Biden family, their associates, and their companies received over $10 million from foreign nationals and their companies. Some of that money came from a Chinese company and went to Hunter Biden's company. Other transfers occurred with the help of Rob Walker, who then sent it on to different Biden family members. This is not how lawful businesses operate. Chinese nationals affiliated with the Bidens created limited liability companies in the United States and then in a short period of time transferred their interest to a Chinese company that sent money to the Bidens.
Colombia's President Gustavo Petro swears in General William Salamanca as Colombia's national police chief, replacing General Henry Sanabria. Petro says in the years to come, Colombia must have law enforcement agencies that cannot be criticized for having violated human rights. The new police chief says there is a historic responsibility to act in unity and greatness in order to give Colombian children and grandchildren a better homeland. Sudanese refugees in neighboring Chad receive humanitarian aid distributed by the United Nations at the Mijigilta camp. The refugees have fled deadly fighting between the Sudanese army and paramilitaries. The United Nations said it was planning for an outflow of 860,000 people from conflict-torn Sudan. It says $445 million would be needed to support them just through October. UNHCR coordinator in Chad says relocating the refugees farther is needed to secure their safety.
UNHCR is identifying sites far from here, at least ahead of 50 kilometers from here, to relocate people from the border so that the risk of insecurity at least is resolved, but also provide assistance to them.
The top diplomats of the United States and Britain call for adherence to the rule of law in Pakistan. These statements come after former Prime Minister Imran Khan's arrest triggered nationwide violence. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Foreign Secretary James Cleverly speak alongside each other at a news conference in Washington.
With regard to Pakistan, of course, I've seen the reports that you've alluded to, and we just want to make sure that whatever happens in Pakistan is consistent with the rule of law, with the Constitution.
Again, with regard to Pakistan, I've seen the headlines. I've not yet had the opportunity to be briefed in detail. The UK has a long-standing and close relationship with Pakistan. We are Commonwealth partners. We want to see peaceful democracy in that country. We want to see the rule of law adhered to. I'm uncomfortable to speculate any further without having a detailed briefing on that.
Khan was arrested during a court appearance Tuesday in Islamabad on one of the myriad cases against him. He was ousted last year as the civilian prime minister of the world's fifth most populous nation. Supporters of Khan, who have been seeking a political comeback, took vengeance against the military, which has long had a dominant position in Pakistani politics. Khan in the past has alleged U.S. involvement in removing him. Washington strongly denies these claims. Southeast Asian leaders condemned an attack on an aid convoy that the regional group had arranged for displaced people in Myanmar. Leaders of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations convened in the picturesque harbor town of Labuan Bajo in southern Indonesia at the start of a two-day summit. The 10-nation bloc has come under international pressure to effectively address the crisis in Myanmar, but ASEAN members appear to be divided on how to proceed. Some members sought to ease punitive actions aimed at isolating Myanmar's generals and inviting its top diplomats and officials back to the high-profile summit meetings. Over the weekend, a convoy delivering aid to displaced villagers and carrying Indonesian and Singaporean diplomats came under fire in Myanmar's eastern Shan state. The convoy's security team returned fire and a vehicle was damaged, but there were no reported injuries. The ASEAN leaders condemned the attack and underlined that the perpetrators must be held accountable.
Juga para menteri luar negeri banyak membahas isu mengenai masalah Myanmar, termasuk isu serangan yang baru-baru ini terjadi pada saat AHA Center dan tim monitoring ASEAN hendak menyampaikan bantuan kemanusiaan.
U.S. State Department spokesman Vedant Patel says maintaining open lines of communication with China is an integral part of the country's approach in a very complicated bilateral relationship. Patel says U.S. Ambassador Nicholas Burns' meeting with Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang focused on issues both countries can tackle together.
The ambassador spoke in his meeting about the areas where our two countries can cooperate, such as addressing the challenge of the climate crisis, such as addressing cooperation when it comes to global health and public health, as well as important opportunities on food security and other things.
The Taiwanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or MOFA, announced the arrival of former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss in Taiwan to take part in a government-funded speaking engagement. Truss, who spent 49 days as the United Kingdom's shortest-serving prime minister last year, has been invited to give a speech in Taipei on May 17 by the Prospect Foundation, a government-funded think tank. Truss is also scheduled to meet with senior government officials and other figures from Taiwan's political, business, and academic circles during her May 16 to 20 visit. The ministry did not say which officials Truss is set to meet with during her 5-day stay or if she is scheduled for a courtesy call with Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen. According to a separate press release issued by Truss's office, the British MP is looking forward to the Taiwan trip. Up next, workers in Haiti protest for high cost of living. Kenya police arrest another pastor for cult practices. And New Zealand declares state of emergency for extreme flooding. Please don't go away. We have more stories from around the globe when we return.
Sa dami ng problema, parang ang hirap ng huminga, di ba? Minsan, pakiramdam mo, hopeless na. Kaya dapat ihayag ang saloobin, himayin ang hinaing, alamin ang pwedeng gawin. Mag-reality check tayo.
Tingin ang real talk ng bayan. Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net 25.
In commemoration of the 137th birth anniversary of Brother Felix Y. Manalo, we look at the developments of the FYM Foundation a decade since its establishment. The Felix Y. Manalo Foundation, the charitable arm of the Iglesia ni Cristo, provides aid to those in need around the world. Michael Robinson tells us more.
Papasalamat po ako dahil nakarating po ang pagtulong, ang paglingap sa lugar namin.
Say thank you. I am so overwhelmed right now and so flabbergasted, lost for words.
No, it's like a second family.
As well as they're helping poor people.
I was so excited to be given the job because I was jobless.
This is the first time for many years that we receive our first donation.
These are some of the faces among millions of people, thousands of communities, and hundreds of organizations worldwide that benefited from an extraordinary humanitarian effort. Welcome to the Felix Y. Manalo, or FYM, Foundation. A global charitable institution with a mission in becoming a leader and providing services that give opportunity and equity for people in need, through promoting education, socio-economic well-being, environmental awareness, and health improvement for all. This all stems from the growing humanitarian and social welfare programs of the Iglesia ni Cristo Church of Christ. These efforts were further systemized and consolidated, leading to the establishment of the FYM Foundation, which was registered officially on February 4th, 2011 in the Philippines. One of its first and premier events of outreach would be through the Aid to Humanity Project, or Lingap sa Mamamayan in Filipino, a project focused on providing for those in need living in impoverished countries, underserved communities, and calamity-stricken areas, first impacting hundreds of communities within the Philippines. Like on July 7, 2012, a large-scale Care for Humanity event would address the needs of over 200,000 people in Tondo, Manila, Philippines, resulting in more humanitarian outreach through the country. The same mission would be extended to the United States when the FYM Foundation was officially registered on May 17, 2012, holding tremendous outreach events like in Times Square, New York.
On behalf of the New York City Fire Department and the FDNY Foundation, we're honored to be here with you today and to receive this gift from the FYM Foundation.
We're very pleased at the Church of Christ for doing that for us. You know, we're very appreciative, and so are these other families too. Thank you.
Answering to the devastation of Hurricane Sandy victims, over $150,000 in donations given for government organizations and victims, leading to more outreach throughout the country. This work of outreach is coordinated through the FYM office in San Francisco, California, with its current board of trustees overseeing all outreach services throughout the United States. Later on, this outreach further expanded by partnering with the Iglesia ni Cristo Church of Christ through evangelical and service-oriented outreach missions known as Kabayan Ko Kapatid Ko, or Welcome My Brethren, in April of 2013, first in Binondo, Manila. The Foundation's outreach arm would make its way to Canada and be established on December 2nd, 2013, the start to many ongoing outreach events in numerous provinces and the response of its government for bringing outreach to the people of Canada.
The Foundation has done a lot of work to try to help out people who are in need. So not only do you celebrate your faith, but you make sure that you put that faith in action. And that means taking care of those people who are vulnerable. And I've seen the Foundation do a lot of good work in supporting it.
The work that you're doing, really, frankly, it's me who's inspired by that kind of work.
With outreach currently addressing needs of poverty, it would be in 2014 that helping calamity-stricken areas would come into focus even more. Over the years, as poverty increased even among first world countries, the FYM Foundation responded with an Aid to Humanity tour. First in Canada with 36 locations of assistance provided, and throughout the United States in August 2019, relief packages were given as well as monetary donations.
I want to learn more. I definitely do, because I feel extremely welcomed and very much loved.
As the pandemic changed the global economy, so did the fight on poverty for the FYM Foundation, holding a more extensive and diverse form of aid now through the Care for Humanity project. This would extend to even more remote and impoverished areas throughout the world, like in Latin America, Asia, Australia and its remote islands, and further countries in Africa.
My family, my children, because of this pandemic, there is so many problems here in Manaus. So we thank you so much because you know you love us so much.
FYM Foundation has also provided monetary donations for sustainable living, leading to the startup of eco-farming, currently with 22 sites in the Philippines, 4 in Africa, and 1 in Wyoming, USA, and 1 in Winnipeg, Canada, as well as a garment factory in Kwakwa, South Africa.
As a mother, a single parent to my son, it was difficult for me. I didn't have hope. But now that, because there is a livelihood like this, it's much easier.
The FYM Foundation also provides aid for education through scholarship grants, also including the inauguration of the Yakap Home for Children, an outreach service in caring for orphan children. All these humanitarian efforts have impacted communities from different backgrounds and walks of life.
To make the lives of so many easier is incredibly motivating, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to work with them. So I want to thank the members of the Church of Christ here in Winnipeg and abroad for all you do.
The name itself, I would say, the Care for Humanity, as I have said already, Care for Human. This is exactly what's happening right now here in Ba, and I'm happy to be part of this program.
This particular group has really just led in friends of making sure that we leave no one behind, whether it's through faith or whether it's through service and helping people. As the supervisor, I'm just humbled to give you this award. Again, it's Iglesia en Cristo Day here in the county of San Mateo.
And most importantly, this outreach continues not only to change lives, but transform them for the better.
Appreciate and grateful. You feel support and you feel that you are not alone.
Thank you, because I don't think you know that how much does help, because a lot of people think Rockford is a very bad city. There's so much crime, and never heard of the organization, but if they had it again, I would come again.
I appreciate that our name is connected to your good work.
Ito ay hindi tumigil. Kahit na may pandemya o wala, tuloy-tuloy ang mga proyekto natin, lalong-lalo na sa ikabubuhay na natin.
Beijing police detain a man allegedly using ChatGPT to create rumors online. According to Gansu Station Police, the suspect spreads generated bogus reports pertaining to a train crash. The suspect posted it online for profit, while the article received about 15,000 views. Authorities say train crashes in China is a sensitive issue since 2011. They note it reminds them of an incident involving a bullet train collision in Wenzhou City, claiming 40 lives. The police only identified the suspect surnamed as Hong. The European Union slams China over changes in Beijing's national security laws for consultancy firms. Chinese authorities had launched an investigation into Capvision, a consulting firm based in the United States. According to Chinese state media, the newly amended cyber law will widen the umbrella term of what constitutes espionage to prevent the theft of state secrets and sensitive information. Eric Zheng of the American Chamber of Commerce in Shanghai says that the crackdown raises concerns that will likely hinder foreign companies to invest in new projects in China. Meanwhile, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin notes that the investigation aims to promote healthy development in the industry.
我想告诉大家的是，近期中国国家安全机关会同有关部门依法对相关企业进行公开执法，这是依据中国法律开展的正常执法行为。 旨在促进有关行业规范健康发展，维护国家安全和发展利益。
What I want to tell everyone is that China's national security agencies and relevant departments have recently carried out open law enforcement actions against the relevant company in accordance with the law. This aims to promote healthy development of the industry and safeguard national security and development interests. Report says between the years 2017 and 2020, CAF Vision transacted more than 2,000 remittances amounting to $70 million from hundreds of overseas companies. Interpol is seeking the public's help to put together evidence on the women with the launch of Operation Identify Me. The 22 women mostly met violent deaths, with the police saying some of them showed signs of abuse or starvation. Their dismembered bodies were found all over Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands over a span of 43 years, with the most recent one discovered in 2019. The police organization said some of the women are believed to have come from from Eastern Europe, but their bodies were possibly left in Belgium, the Netherlands, and Germany to mislead investigators. Sources say Pakistan has begun purchasing discounted Russian oil with Chinese yuan. The move will reduce the use of U.S. dollars in international payments. The first shipment of more than 750,000 barrels is anticipated to arrive in June. Local media says the Bank of China will facilitate the transaction. There are no reports on how much oil Pakistan is buying or what the mode of payment is. But sources say the country agreed to pay between $50 to $52 per barrel. After crossing from Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, hundreds of migrants cross into the United States. There, they wait to be processed by the Border Patrol El Paso sector in Texas. As U.S. President Joe Biden's administration is officially ending its use of Title 42, a surge of migrants is expected at the U.S.-Mexico border cities. However, some migrants escaping economic and political turmoil have already arrived. The Texan cities of El Paso, Brownsville, and Laredo have already declared a state of emergency. They are struggling to cope with hundreds of people, most from Latin America, some from China, Russia, and Turkey, who are already there. On Thursday, May 11, Title 42 will be lifted. Title 42 is a strict protocol implemented by the previous president, Donald Trump, to deny entry to migrants and expel asylum seekers based on the COVID pandemic emergency. In Haiti, workers from Sonape Industrial Park protest in the streets of Port-au-Prince against the high cost of living and insecurity. Protesters are demanding an increase in the minimum wage. Protesters say police bombarded them with tear gas despite their intent to be peaceful and informed them about their demonstration route. They demand security in the country as reports of rape by armed gangs increase. Some say they are beaten going to and from work. Peacekeepers in the Democratic Republic of Congo have discovered mass graves containing the bodies of 20 civilians following a series of attacks blamed on a local armed group. Severe flooding, torrential rains, and landslides have unearthed several of these mass graves all over the contested region. Several police officers and a forensic team were alerted after the residents of the Beni territory found bones and clothing close to their village. The area had been under the control of the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, a rebel militia with links to the Islamic State group. The area is now under the watchful eye of the Congolese army. It was not immediately clear how long the bodies had been there, as the Eastern Congo has been plagued by violence for decades. More than 120 armed groups have been fighting for power, influence, and resources to enrich and protect their communities. ADF rebels have been active in Eastern Congo for decades and have killed thousands in the region since they resurfaced in 2000. 2013. Earlier this year, the United States offered a reward of up to $5 million for information that could lead to the capture of the group's leader, Seka Musa Baluku. In Kenya, Bungoma police have summoned Eliud Wekesa over allegations of cultic practices. Bungoma Police Commander Francis Cooley said Wekesa is expected to be questioned on issues of questionable teachings to his followers. Wekesa defended himself, insisting that his church operations are premised on the Word of God. The self-proclaimed deity pleaded with the police not to arrest him, saying that he committed no wrong. This has just been another case of what Kenya has been facing for cult practices, with the most recent mass grave discovered contained 21 more bodies. A total of 133 people have been confirmed dead in the so-called Shakahola Forest Massacre. Police believe most of the bodies were followers of self-styled pastor Paul Etenge Mackenzie, who is accused of ordering them to starve to death to meet Jesus. Televangelist Ezekiel Odero was arrested and received huge cash transactions, allegedly from Mackenzie's followers, who sold their property at the cult leader's bidding. President William Ruto has vowed a crackdown on Kenya's homegrown religious movements in the aftermath of the saga. In New Zealand, authorities declare a state of emergency in Auckland as extreme flooding hits the city. This was after the region was doused by heavy rainfall. Local officials suspended school and train services due to the downpour, which is expected to last until midnight. Fire and emergency crews say it had responded to more than 200 calls, mostly in Auckland. Data shows that Auckland already recorded 90% of the average annual rainfall this year. Alessandra Corap, a 39-year-old Munduruku native, has been awarded this year's Goldman Prize, which recognizes grassroots activism. Two of Brazil's major federal highways paved the way for thousands of settlers, illegal gold miners, and loggers into her region's vast indigenous territory. Corap and other Munduruku women took up the responsibility of defending their people, overturning the traditionally all-male leadership of her people. She started by organizing her communities and orchestrating demonstrations, to which they even compiled evidence and presented their data on the prevalent environmental desecration taking place within the forests of Brazil. She presented compelling evidence in front of the federal attorney general and police and vehemently opposed illicit agreements and incentives offered to the Munduruku by corporations and politicians seeking access to their land. Corap's defense of her ancestral territory was recognized with the Goldman Environmental Prize. The award honors individuals around the world who are dedicated to protecting the environment and promoting sustainability. Coming right up, Elon Musk plans to delete inactive Twitter accounts. A Swiss company launches a new technology to combat global warming. And two BTS solo documentaries to hit cinemas for their 10th anniversary. Catch the latest in business, sports, and entertainment when Mata ng Agila International returns. Twitter CEO Elon Musk announces his plan to delete accounts that have been inactive for years. According to Twitter's updated internal inactive account policies, users should log in or at least every 30 days. Last April 19, the Twitter's policy was still at a requirement to log in every 6 months. Many users are not sure what would be the basis for the deletion. Trees have remained to be the best absorbers of carbon dioxide, but a Swiss company built a new technology that works the same way while taking up less land. Swiss company Climeworks launched Orca, a climate-positive direct air capture technology and storage plant. By removing excess carbon dioxide from the air, this technology aims to combat global warming. The world's first and largest of its kind, Orca was designed to permanently remove 4,000 tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere per year and store it safely deep underground. Climeworks opened its largest plant in Iceland, where carbon dioxide is taken from the air and turned into stones. However, there are concerns that the technology is energy intensive and therefore would produce more emissions, except in countries like Iceland, where electricity is from renewable zero carbon sources. Exciting news for the BTS Army. To celebrate the K-pop group's 10th anniversary, 2 BTS solo documentaries will hit global cinemas this June. Big Entertainment says J-Hope's In the Box and Suga's Road to DJ will hit theaters on June 17. The documentaries will run for a limited time on the big screen. The films originally premiered on Disney+. It's Wednesday, and to help you get through this week, here's a quote from Ayn Rand, a Russian-born American writer and philosopher, founder of Objectivism. What greater wealth is there than to own your life and to spend it on growing? Nothing can compare, no material things, nothing. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. Stay tuned for tonight's episode of Counterpoint with attorney Salvador Panelo, writer, host, and entrepreneur RJ Ledesma. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.